Hmm.
Objection to relevance is overruled.
I think I might have just diagnosed myself.
You agree that battered women often develop the defense mechanism of being able to psychologically detach from their body during a traumatic experience.
Mm.
Some people do experience that.
I'm just going to list some of the symptoms that you find in battered spouse women, and just to see if you agree with these. We talked about intrusive memories and flashbacks of the past traumatic events. You agree with that?
Yes.
The severe anxiety and hypervigilance,
Yes.
the panic attacks,
That is sometimes present. It depends on how the person experiences anxiety, but some do have panic attacks.
very low self-esteem,
Yes.
poor body image,
Sometimes.
feeling that they have no control,
Yes.
sexual dysfunction,
It can be, particularly if the trauma includes sexualized attacks.
short-term memory problems and confusion,
Yes, that's part of PTSD sometimes.
and they can actually have physical health problems from the chronic stress and physical violence.
That's correct.
Yep. Fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome.
Fear,
Yes,
constant fear.
that's correct.
Now, the abusive partner, the abuser, part of the abuse would be hitting, kicking, punching, choking, burning, and biting.
Approach.
Hmm. That was almost like reading pages out of my own diary type of thing. That's scary. What are my cats doing? Something they shouldn't be. I can hear them. Little monsters. What are you doing? He's clawing the carpet. Mummy, 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 get to bed, mummy. Hmm. Oh, stop it. Little turds.
You may proceed, sir.
All right, I'm asking about common things that occur by the abusive partner towards the victim that create this intimate partner violence or create this syndrome in the woman. Hitting,
Yes, that could be an overt act.
kicking,
Yes,
punching,
yes,
choking,
yes,
burning,
yes,
using weapons to hurt you,
yes,
a knife,
correct.
curtain rod,
Yes,
threatening to hurt you, your children, or your pets,
yes,
belittling and humiliating you,
that's correct.
taking your car keys,
That would be considered a form of control. So yes,
controlling your money,
yes,
control where you go and who you see
correct.
and who you can talk to,
That's
Mhm.
right.
Force
And
you
what
to
you
have
say to
sex
them.
when you don't want to.
Yes.
Wanting to know where you are 24 hours a day.
Stalking you.
Oh,
Yes.
same.
Slapping you.
Correct.
You agree victims that suffer from this abuse experience feelings of anger,
Yes, that can be in some of the phases. So,
sadness,
yes.
hopelessness,
Yes.
worthlessness,
Correct.
intense feelings of fear.
Yes.
Abusers have a tendency to have low self-esteem themselves.
Overruled.
Abusers.
Overruled.
The abuser can have low self-esteem himself,
Yes.
have a desire for power and control,
Correct.
have a tendency to use alcohol or drugs.
Yes.
Abusers oftentimes have temper,
That's correct.
become jealous easily,
Yes.
very possessive.
Can be.
Mhm.
Evaluations for the prosecution in
Oh.
the past.
I have been
What happened
called to testify about that.
So you understand when the government
Didn't touch
obtains a
anything.
court
It
order
just
for
that.
their expert to come in and do
Oh.
an evaluation, it's for one evaluation, correct?
I believe that you're saying that the government can retain their own expert. Yes.
No, I mean, what I'm
It just
Considered a form of control. So, yes.
Controlling your money,
Yes.
control where you go and who you see
Correct.
and who you can talk to,
That's right.
force you to have sex when you don't want to,
Yes.
slapping you, feelings of fear.
Yes.
if it does it again. Let's see.
Abusers have a tendency to have low self-esteem themselves.
Overruled.
Abusers.
Overruled.
The abuser can have low self-esteem himself,
Yes.
have a desire for power and control,
Correct.
have a tendency to use alcohol or drugs.
Yes.
Abusers oftentimes have temper,
That's correct.
become jealous easily,
Yes.
very possessive.
Can be.
The victims can suffer from severe psychological distress.
That's correct.
Is that what Sarah Boone suffered from?
Yes.
No more questions, John. Don't know why that jumped like that.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Harper, I'm showing you Exhibit 14, this is 5 photographs. Did you watch the video of the TV, the TV?
I did.
You can considered that in your analysis and your diagnosis?
Yes, I did.
I'm going to show you some pictures. Exhibit 12. I believe she's testified that this is where the curve line. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
Exhibit 11. Are you familiar with this photograph over here?
Yes.
Exhibit 10, which is her arm. Are you familiar with that photograph?
We need James Owens to go and represent
Picture of the blood.
Ashley Benefield.
Exhibit 8, picture of her black eye.
Yes, I've seen these.
Picture, exhibit 7, picture of her, Sarah's lips, and
Yes.
this is a composite exhibit 6, which is of the stab to her leg. Are you familiar with those?
Yes.
And I don't know if you've seen this, exhibit 5 is where she spilled some soup as a result of his behavior.
I'm not sure if I've seen this photo, but I've seen the medical record associated with that.
Of that burn. Exhibit 4,
Yes.
made with that. Looks like exhibit 3. She was slapped.
Yes.
Exhibit 2. Picture of bruising in this book.
Yes.
Did you consider all those photographs informing your opinions that you've expressed here today as it relates to Sarah Boone?
Yes, under the substantiation that she has indeed experienced past instances of intimate partner violence against her.
Is it fair to say that it takes time, a number of times, to visit with someone like this to build trust?
Yes, traumatized people are slow to disclose information. You have to build
Hello,
rapport.
sweetheart.
You have to make sure that they experience you discussing
Welcome
other
back.
things without an emotional reaction. They feel easily judged, as we mentioned, have defensive denial, things like that. So you need to build good rapport in doing an assessment with somebody that's experienced trauma.
So a lot of times they're very slow to open up and tell you about the abuse.
That is correct.
And they'll actually often lie about it.
Deny it, yes, and just say that that's not the issue or they're fine. So oftentimes I'll have an evaluation request come from an attorney who's having difficulty interacting with their client, and then ultimately it's a result of trauma.
Now, I know that you viewed everything, and I know you've seen her 9 times. Is there did you feel like you had enough time? Was 9 visits enough time for you to feel like you had enough time and information to form the opinions that you've expressed here today and given to this group?
Yes.
That's all the questions I have.
Any cross-examination?
Yes, sir.
Mhm. This will be interesting.
Good afternoon, Dr. Harper.
Good afternoon.
So you have done some evaluation work on battered spouse syndrome for a prosecution in the past?
No.
All right. Have you done insanity evaluations for the prosecution in the past?
I have been called to testify about that.
So you understand when the government obtains a court order for their expert to come in and do an evaluation, it's for one evaluation, correct?
I believe that you're saying that the government can retain their own expert. Yes.
No, man, what I'm talking about is you just went through that you had 9 visits with Ms. Boone,
I
correct?
did. Yes.
And that was over the course of 8 different days because 2 of those visits were morning and afternoon sessions, correct?
That's right.
And what we are trying to help you have the jury understand is that when you get hired by the government and the court gives you an order to go evaluate somebody, you get one crack at the apple. Is that your understanding from your past work working for the government?
No, that's not always correct. There are many instances in competency evaluations where evaluators will request additional visits if they cannot determine their opinion on the first visit.
Right? Specifically, when it comes to an affirmative defense, such as battered spouse evidence and insanity, what is your understanding and your expertise?
What is my understanding of
Is
the
it one?
issue? Oh,
Judge, the question.
Legal objection,
Objection.
legal grounds.
He asked a question about battered spouse and
Approach.
insanity.
That's dodgy. Sorry. Really dodgy. You missed a lot, actually. A lot. So this is the
Objection
hang
sustained.
on.
When it comes to an affirmative defense, such as battered spouse syndrome being used for self-defense or, not and, insanity, it requires a court order for the state to go have an evaluator go, right?
Yes, he is.
Now, what are the agreed upon criteria for battered spouse syndrome?
well,
This is the forensic psychologist that evaluated Sarah from 2020, back then. She diagnosed her with depression and PTSD and battered spouse syndrome back then. And pretty much explained everything that Sarah had testified to and explained everything that has happened to her and her responses to it. So, yeah, the defense have pretty much put the nail in the coffin, and now they've just gone into cross-examination, and he's coming out with, you know, you're only allowed to go one time or some crap. So, yeah.
you would evaluate if the person is indeed suffering from a behavioral response like a mental disorder. So first of all, has the person demonstrated that they've got a behavioral change? And is it in response to a violent act? Do they perceive threat where they've been exposed in the past? So pattern of violence that has repeated.
Does control over another person in an intimate relationship have anything to do with it?
Mhm.
Yes, it can.
Does isolation have anything to do with it?
Mhm.
Yes.
And by control, I mean controlling who you go see, who you hang out with, so on and so forth.
Yes.
And could it involve controlling personal items of the other person as well?
Yes, it can.
So that's what I'm asking. Like in the DSM-5 TR, I believe you pulled up narcissistic personality disorder.
Yes.
And so when you do that, it pulls up and it says there's 9 criteria and 5 of those criteria must be met to make a diagnosis for narcissistic personality disorder, correct?
That's right.
Now, battered spouse syndrome is not recognized by the DSM-5 TR, correct?
No, it's not a diagnosis. You wouldn't use it as a diagnosis.
And what I'm asking is, even though we haven't written it down in the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, and I mean the like the Ohio State University or something, is it written down anywhere? Can one psychologist or psychiatrist rely upon a recipe or a list of criteria that everyone else would be using in your field as well?
There is no standardized approach you must follow. In other words, sometimes if we have a statute, for instance, it would identify what we must investigate. It doesn't exist like that. There's no statute directing it.
And there's nothing written down anywhere that says, of these 9 criteria, these things must exist. Controlling your partner, isolating your partner, beating your partner, so on and so forth, correct?
That's right.
All right. Now, this kind of abuse can come in the form of emotional or mental abuse outside completely of physical or sexual abuse, correct?
Mhm.
So that is a component. You can have extreme mental abuse occur of a person. Yes.
And if that person responds to that environmental stimuli of whatever it is the partner is saying or doing to them, they may internally view that as traumatic,
They could.
or they may not.
That's right.
It's entirely possible for two people to be in a 3.5-year relationship that has physical violence and neither one of them feel traumatized by that. Is that correct?
That's right. If they have enough supportive or positive experiences that would negate that ratio, so of positive to negative, they may feel okay.
And a man can be subjected to this sort of trauma, whether it be
Mhm.
physical, emotional, or sexual by an intimate partner as well, correct?
That's right.
And it's basically it's unique to each relationship, right?
That is right.
But trauma is in the eye of the beholder. Is that fair? Whether a negative experience traumatizes somebody is going to be in the eye of the person who experienced that stimuli, correct?
I only partially agree with you. It's a complicated answer because some of the manifestations of trauma are behavioral. So for instance, when I evaluate veterans who have returned and they may not know that they've been traumatized, their bodily responses that include like difficulty concentrating, they can't sleep, they're hypervigilant. The PTSD diagnosis encompasses outward manifestations. So even though they don't acknowledge trauma, you can still identify it as a clinician.
But still, somebody like a homicide detective or a homicide prosecutor can go to scenes where there are dead bodies, go to autopsies where there are dead bodies, and not walk away with any trauma, correct?
So that got to do with it.
Whereas somebody else might.
Right. The environmental,
Mhm.
I guess, cues for that person, and also working with law enforcement, they become seasoned to micro traumas. So the first, almost every police officer can remember the first dead body they've seen. So it's in their memory. And then they become accustomed to seeing gruesome scenes. They have increased tolerance over time because it's part of their job. It may not be part of their intimate relationship that they have with someone else.
Now, you brought up veterans. Is something common with PTSD with veterans, something like firecrackers may set them off because it reminds them of acts of war?
That's right.
You're not suggesting to the jury today that if somebody who returns with PTSD from service and hears firecrackers
Gotta go
is
to the status
justified
command.
in going outside and just shooting bullets everywhere, correct?
That's a stretch.
No, that's not what I said.
Stretch.
I'm not saying you did.
Okay.
Martin, don't go there.
What this battered spouse syndrome evidence is helpful for is not that subjective mindset, but rather helping to explain the objective circumstances that are presented to somebody and how it might be different from somebody with those experiences. They may view something.
Everybody reacts
objectively
differently.
different.
I partially disagree with your question because I would say that there are incidents or actual events between partners that would be a factual thing, something has happened.
Yeah.
And then the person subjectively experiences that as, intrusive or controlling or traumatic. So that is the person's felt or subjective experience. The objective part is what happened.
But again, as a forensic psychologist, you're familiar with the justified use of force instruction, correct?
I'm not a lawyer, though, so I'm aware of it, but I cannot debate fine points of that with you. I'm sorry.
I'm just helping. I'm trying to understand what you said before, because there's a subjective component, whether or not a person believes subjectively that they need to use some sort of force, deadly or non-deadly. You agree with that, correct?
I do.
And then there's also a second component that it's objectively reasonable to the ordinary person to use force, correct?
I understand what you're saying, yes.
And what I believe I heard you mention earlier about battered spouse syndrome was originally was meant to help understand why people stay in these relationships.
Originally, yes.
Because it
Back
may
to
not just
79.
be intuitive to somebody who doesn't understand these things, why somebody who is abused time and time and time again would remain in that relationship, correct?
That's right.
And again, and I know you're not a lawyer, but if the law has evolved about retreat and not having to retreat and so on and so forth, that kind of changes some of the lens of this, correct?
Judge, I'm going to object.
Approach.
Yeah.
Check. Question withdrawn. You may proceed.
All right. So you would agree that hypothetically, if somebody is running down their partner, saying negative things about them, telling them they're
Yep.
unattractive, telling them things that would potentially hurt their feelings, that could be an element of control of a verbally abusive relationship.
It could.
What's the
Propping
point?
one up, hypothetically saying, I'm the best thing that has ever happened to you. You'll never do better than me. Is that a potential component of the control that one in an abusive relationship might exert over an intimate partner?
Yes, to try to not encourage their partner to leave them. Yeah.
Considering gifts, hypothetically, that one partner has given to another partner, but considering it still to be your property because you gave it to them, is that a form of a potential exertion of control over an intimate partner when you give somebody hypothetically a bike, but still consider it your own bike?
I mean, I don't think that's strong evidence of that. I think that it
He's
does happen. And
He's taking tiny little excerpts out of and tiny little comments to try and flip the overall concept, and he's not doing a very good job of it. I'm sorry. Yeah, he needs to sit down.
relationships, and people do that in general, but I wouldn't say that's like really
Mhm.
specific to this.
How about
Glad she's
hypothetically
standing her
exerting
ground.
control over your intimate partner's identification papers, such as a birth certificate?
So that can happen. People will
That's
hide
been
things that
presented
are
as
required for
evidence?
work. For instance, like your driver's license or things like that.
Now I'm asking yes or no questions. If Mr. Owens would like you to elaborate further, he's going to have that opportunity in a little bit. Okay. Hypothetically, if one partner destroys another partner's belongings, is that a potential example of exerting control in a relationship?
Where is this?
Yes.
Thank you. Hypothetically, is threatening to or actually using legal process as a threat against your intimate partner?
Oh my God.
Potential indicia of
Oh my God. Are you for shiz? So if you say, stop doing that, I'm going to ring the police, he's insinuating that that is a potential indication of battered spouse syndrome. You can't have it both ways, Mr. Prosecutor. You can't say you zipped them up and then didn't call for help. But if they do call for help, they are an abuser. Yeah. He needs to sit the fuck down.
controlling your partner. For instance, X, Y, or Z, or I'm going to get you arrested.
Okay?
Yes, I would agree that happens.
Oh my God.
Now, I assume you would agree that this cycle of violence that we've described, the tension building, the blow up, and then the honeymoon phase, you would agree that just one of those cycles could be enough to give somebody a traumatic experience if they took it as a traumatic experience.
Yes.
The defendant described her first date with Mr. Torres to you, did she not?
She did.
And at the time of this first date, they had obviously just met that night at a bar, correct?
Right.
They were not financially intertwined, correct?
That's right.
They shared no children in common.
And
That's
you
right.
know what the nail in the coffin is? This woman did this assessment back in 2020. Okay? So this was before, this is 4 years ago. Sarah she hasn't sat in that jail cell and researched battered spouse syndrome for 4 years and then decided to enact it recently since this new lawyer. So she was assessed way back when it happened. And that's when she was diagnosed with both the depression, the PTSD, and battered spouse. So I'm sorry. This was before 9 attorneys. This was before all of the bullshit. And looking back retrospectively, yeah, I am, yeah, fuck.
They did not live together.
Correct.
And after this description that she provided you, which included him smashing her phone, correct?
Yes.
Hitting her, first time she'd ever been hit in her life, correct?
Yes.
And making her crouch in like a fetal position on the porch for several hours to the point where it hurt her back, correct?
Yes.
Threatened to sodomize her.
Correct.
And she described that she was all bruised up, correct?
Yes.
After that, this is the first time she had ever met him, correct?
I believe so. Yes.
There was a second date, correct?
Yes.
Despite not having any of that intertwinement that we went through prior to this description, correct?
That's right.
Now, it is possible under what we've discussed, right? Just that quick one date can be that buildup of tension and blow up, correct?
Yes.
But it's different hypothetically than saying a spouse who is financially dependent on his or her other spouse in a 20-year marriage with a house full of kids than a first date, correct? You would agree in severity in the intertwinement.
Where are you going?
There's a difference in intertwinement. The pattern can be exactly the same.
Now, of course, there are many different reasons why somebody will stay in a relationship that, when perceived from the outside, others would say is abusive, correct? The defendant described that she felt like she was making Mr. Torres a better person, correct?
That's right.
A better father, correct?
Right.
A better ex-husband.
With phone calls. Yes.
And she would tell him to call his children,
That's right.
make sure that he sent them Christmas gifts,
Yes.
and make sure he sent his ex-wife money when she asked, correct?
Yes.
So you would agree those are indicia or indicators, sorry.
Understand.
I know you know. That perhaps she wasn't necessarily financially dependent on Mr. Torres, correct?
Not initially.
I'm
No.
not saying conclusion, but those are indicators. If you're saying, please spend your money elsewhere,
It doesn't have to
then
be
I don't
all
need
of
your money,
those.
correct?
No, because even if there was money that was needed by Ms. Boone, her tendency to put the needs of her partner before her would direct her to do exactly that, like make him better, make him have the availability to visit his children, send them presents, even if she's the one that needed the money.
And in her perspective, Mr. Torres needed her to do this to make him a better person, correct?
I believe that, yes.
He's going down the
How
narcissistic
many
path.
years of her adult life did she describe working?
I don't think she gave it a specific quantity. We just went through a variety of her jobs that she had in the past.
And, you know, she was low 40s when she met you 4
Yes.
years ago.
That's right.
So she had been 18 for probably about 24 years. Did she give you a 24, right? 24 plus 18, 42?
You said
Look-
for 24 years. And that's why I was confused. You can't be 18 for 24 years, but
Did
24 years ago, I would agree.
her work history kind of flesh out to be 24 years is what I'm asking?
I'm not certain.
And at the time, in the apartment in 2020, she had not been working, correct?
That's right.
And had not been working for some time.
That's right.
And what she was doing was living off of the settlement that she had been bought out of with her husband, was lump sum, plus $1,000 a month in alimony and $100 a month in child support, correct?
Yes.
It was Mr.
And-
Torres who would work, correct?
He worked at Ace Hardware.
When he would show up.
Right.
Sometimes he didn't show up, is what she indicated, correct?
Yes.
Because of his drinking problems.
Yes.
Did she describe to you, well, let me strike that. She did describe to you one instance, at least, where violence occurred in front of her child, correct?
Yes.
And that her child had gone to school and reported it, correct?
Yes.
And you understand as a forensic psychologist that teachers are mandatory reporters, right?
That's right.
Did you review any DCF records in this case?
No, I didn't receive any DCF records.
Did Miss Boone ever indicate to you at any point in time she became too afraid to let Lucas come over to the house?
Yes, there were times where she would ask Mr. Boone, so Brian Boone, to not bring him there.
And Mr. Boone was aware of this because she would say things like that, correct?
Yes.
And at different times, she told you that she would go over to Mr. Boone's house to escape the violence of Mr. Torres.
That's right.
And February 24th of 2020, the child was scheduled to be picked up by Miss Boone, correct?
That's right.
Despite everything that she was aware of and what Mr. Brian Boone was aware of, correct?
Right.
And you saw in her police interview that she swore on the life of her son that she was telling them the truth, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Object.
Approach.
They've already established that they will deny it, particularly initially, because they're embarrassed, because they're in denial, they want to protect that person. Where's the straws? Because he's grasping.
Objection sustained.
Rephrase it. She swore on her son's life that it was not intentional that she ended up killing Mr. Torres, correct?
That
I object.
I missed that question. What was it?
that
Minor hard
Objection
case.
sustained.
Rephrase it. She swore on her son's life that it was not intentional that she ended up killing Mr. Torres, correct?
that
I object.
Approach.
407. You were the one that called it before. Custom suit. Oh, Brian, maybe your suitcase, has it got like a custom hazmat lining? I think the state is screwed.
Objection sustained. Question is stricken. Members of the jury, questions are not evidence, and you're not to give them any weight whatsoever. Mr. J, you may proceed.
She's quote unquote swore on her child's life that it was not intentional. That. Correct?
before I answer, I'd like you to direct me to that part of her interview. So
I'll strike it with you. It's in the video. Some of Miss Boone's diagnoses predated her relationship with Mr. Torres, correct?
yes,
And so when diagnoses predate a violent intimate partner relationship, there is an independent cause, even though they may then later contribute to
Could be organic.
the phenomenon we see, correct?
well, I wouldn't say that all mental disorders have an independent cause. Sometimes they're spontaneous or biological in nature.
Well, let's talk about hers. I mean, you're familiar with her prior diagnoses and you went through her childhood, so on and so forth, correct?
I did.
So she was bringing some things with her prior to Mr. Torres' relationship, correct?
She had
Just answer yes or no, ma'am.
yes, she did.
You're a fucker. You are a fucker.
You reviewed some Advent health records, correct, of hers?
Yes,
And some Aspire records of hers, correct?
Yes.
And you would agree that there are time in the Advent health records where she goes to the hospital and then leaves before getting treated, correct?
Yes.
And there is a time when she goes to the hospital where she is described, their words, not mine, as having ETOH on board.
Yes.
Do you understand what ETOH means?
In a medical record, you would use that shorthand for
Ethanol.
alcohol.
Or ethanol, right?
Yes.
Drinking alcohol, not the other stuff.
Correct.
And
He's
in
talking
the
about depression, I think.
records that
Yeah, I get you.
reviewed from Aspire,
Oh,
she came with complaints of depression in January of 2018,
Mhm.
correct?
Told you.
That's right.
And ethanol or alcohol is a central nervous system depressant, correct?
Yes.
Really?
And I know you're a psychologist, not a psychiatrist. So let me know if I'm pushing you too far and you're not going to answer.
Don't be fucking
But you are familiar generally with
Oh.
the effects ethanol has on the body.
that.
Generally, yes,
And you can and do make diagnoses of alcohol abuse disorder.
I do.
And in your professional life or personal life, are you familiar with the standard serving size of drinks when you're evaluating somebody's drinking? For instance, hey, I only drink 2 drinks a day. All right, well, are they 64-ounce mugs of beer or are they 12-ounce? So are you familiar in that context?
It might be a question I would ask during evaluation. What are you referring to? Is it a mixed drink? Is it a shot? Like I try to identify that.
And do you ever ask if somebody says they drink 2 glasses of wine, well, how big are the glasses of wine?
Sometimes.
And is your understanding that 5 ounces is the standard serving of wine since it's about 12% alcohol?
I'm not sure what the standard size is, but I would ask regarding like a wine glass.
And in January of 2018, when she came in crying and complaining of symptoms consistent with depression, she had a blood alcohol level of 0.165, correct?
I believe so.
And in October of 2018, when she ended up going to Aspire, when she was found stumbling by police, she had a breath alcohol of 0.185.
I'm reacting to your description of her stumbling by police. I know she approached police for help. So
So there have been 2 sets of records, but I believe you may have the same set that I received on September 27th, 24. Can you turn to page 21 of 57 of the Aspire records?
mine aren't numbered, but I will.
May I approach the witness?
Yes.
He's being an asshole, isn't he, Clumsy? Yes. Yes, he is. Well, the wine bottle is glass, so technically, if you drink the whole bottle, it's one glass. A clear suitcase. Fill it full of baby oil. Oh dear, I've got visuals.
All right, may I approach the witness?
You may.
What I'm showing you is what is page 2157 on records from Aspire that was provided to me by the defendants on September 27th, 2024. And just at the top, you can read the first or the 4th lines.
All right, Judge, I would ask that she be allowed to read that entire paragraph under the rule of completeness.
Approach.
Oh God. Approach. All right. Whilst we do that, I can hear you. Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you. For God's sake. Hang on 1 second. um, okay, this is my view. Sun's coming up outside, as you can see the kitchen window, and I have a kitty cat on my mouse pad. Clumsy. I need to use my mouse. I can't work without it. And I don't like this. Oh, now he's pushed my... he's touching buttons on the bloody keyboard. Ugh. Come on. Come on. I don't like this prosecutor. Don't like him. Don't like him. Okay. You don't want to see what he's doing now, so we'll swap back. Does that taste nice? Does it? What have I got? Can't find baby oil. Did he bought it all? Bottle had a hole in it. Johnson & Johnson was ice cream. Cornered the market. Oh dear. Put the kettle on. Come on. No more sidebars. Oh.
You may proceed, Mr. J.
Thank you. All right, October of 2018, or of 2018, there was a second visit to Aspire, and that was based upon her being found stumbling by law enforcement with a .185, correct?
She walked up. Okay. So I'd have to say no, the way you phrased the question.
Ma'am, Boone was stumbling due to her level of impairment.
This isn't her first rodeo.
Yes, I agree.
Is that part of the records you relied upon?
Yes.
Thank you.
I hope the jury sees right through this.
When you talked to Ms. Boone about that, she kind of just described an event of June of 2018 and blurring those two events, did she not?
No, she told me she had two different Baker Acts.
Did she describe it as being June of 2018?
I'll have to reference my interview note to find that if you would like me
What's
to.
Jiffy Lube?
No.
We'll just take a Jiffy. What's Jiffy Lube?
You remember giving a deposition on October 1st at the state attorney's office downstairs?
I do.
And at that point in time, and I'll ask the opposing party, you want me to show her prior statement before I ask her?
I think she's got a deposition.
Do you have your transcript?
I do.
Just
So for the record, it's page 34 that I'm referring to. Line 16 and 17.
I don't know where he's going with this, but I think it's nowhere.
Yes, I'm with you.
An oil changing. Oh, it's a company.
That's what I said in my deposition, that she was describing her experience in June of 18.
And she described this experience as going to the hospital to find a pastor, correct?
Yes.
And ends up going to what we call Lakeside then and Aspire now, right?
Yes.
And then what you described was she was talking about more of the violence that occurred specifically regarding a significant episode of Jorge driving her roughly in the car, so on and so forth, correct?
Yes.
All right. Those were two separate incidences. January, when she came looking for the pastor, correct?
So I'm just clarifying that there's a record that we started with this conversation from October of 2018. And there is a description of her trying to go to the hospital to seek a counselor. So those are
I thought it was specific lube for people that only took a jiffy. So I dispensed a tiny amount because it's not worth wasting it.
two different instances.
In January of 2018, when she went to the hospital crying and signs of depression,
Bless you.
she indicated that was because
Every time
her husband and
John
son
says
had gone out of town and she was feeling lonely and sad about having lost her job a few weeks earlier, right?
There were numerous stressors there, yes.
Nothing mentioned about any problems with somebody named Mr. Jorge or George Torres, correct?
You're talking about January?
Yes, ma'am.
Come here. Come on. Emergency cat supplies for this very reason. How organised am I? Just a quickie. You have to wait till it gets out of the can, Fonzie. That better? There you go. There you go. Catastrophe averted. Now you know why I'm late to streams, because I've got to make sure I've got all my bases covered. Cat sorted.
So the hospital records are not referencing her relationship with George on the January date.
Well, what does that mean?
Now, in talking about February 23rd, 2020 with Ms. Boone, you talked to her about that on several occasions, correct?
I did.
And part of one of those conversations, at least, was about an incident that she indicated had happened the night before February 23rd, 2020, correct?
Yes.
She indicated and told you that she had been dragged down the stairs the night before the suitcase incident, correct?
That's right.
And in part of your review of this case, you reviewed all the crime scene photos, correct?
Yes.
Those include photographs of Ms. Boone, correct?
Yes.
And were there any indications in the photographs of injuries on her consistent with being dragged down the stairs of carpet?
I didn't see inside her scalp. So I didn't see photos of inside, her hair follicles, and this area of her head. On her outward body, there were no indications of that.
And did you ask her how it was that she was injured during this dragging down the stairs?
I don't think I went through specific injuries to her, no.
Do you agree that alcohol intoxication affects the credibility of a historian that's providing history to you, patient or a client?
If they're actively intoxicated, yes.
We had talked, you and Mr. Owens, had talked about narcissistic personality disorder earlier.
Yes.
And that is a
You had your
recognized
chance.
diagnosis in the DSM-5-TR.
That's right.
Should have had her assessed.
And there's 9 of those, correct? 9 traits?
Are you talking about, you're talking about the criterion of narcissistic personality disorder?
It's relevant.
Like page 761 on your hard copy.
Thank you.
She's the expert and she didn't diagnose it.
Am I close?
You can't convince her otherwise.
760, but that's fine.
One of the criteria is has a grandiose
Grandiose.
sense of self-importance, for example, exaggerates achievements and talents, expects to be recognized as superior without commensurate achievements, correct?
Yes.
2 is preoccupied with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love, correct?
Yes.
3, belief that he or she is special and unique and can only be understood by or should associate with other special or high status people, or institutions, correct?
So 3, just caveat, it says believes, not belief, but the rest of what you said I agree with is the criterion.
4, requires excessive admiration.
Objection.
Yes.
5, has a sense of entitlement, unreasonable expectations of especially favorable treatment or automatic compliance with his or her expectations, correct?
Yes.
6 is interpersonally exploitive, takes advantage of others to achieve his or her own ends, correct?
Why
Is
is he not doing an
interpersonally
objection?
exploitative.
7, lacks empathy, is unwilling to recognize or identify with the feelings and needs of others, correct?
Yes.
8, is often envious of others or believes that others are envious of him or her, correct?
Yes.
9, shows arrogant or haughty behaviors or attitudes.
Yes.
Now, you believe that she has traits of that disorder, correct?
Yes.
Grandiose sense of self-importance.
There are indications that she feels like that or has expressed that before.
So that's a yes.
Yes.
Preoccupied with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love.
No.
You remember going to the state attorney's office on October 1st, 2020?
Can't get her to do a diagnosis now, mate. It's too late.
Like Madam Court reporter here.
Yes.
And you swore to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, correct? And referring to page 89.
He's really going to question an expert
line
witness on a
18 to
diagnosis.
20. Let me know when you're ready. Are you ready?
Yes.
You're
The
condescending.
following answer to the following question: preoccupied with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love. And your answer was yes.
I did answer yes there.
She does not, according, in your estimation, does not believe that she is special and unique and can only associate with high status people, correct?
No.
Does not require excessive admiration, correct?
Correct.
Does have a sense of entitlement,
Yes.
is not interpersonally exploited.
So does everyone born
Correct.
after
She's not.
98.
And when discussing whether or not she lacked empathy or was unwilling to recognize or identify with the feelings or needs of others, you indicated that that might be the case, but it's not intentional.
In other words, she's not aware if she's inconveniencing others.
So there was 3 of those traits, correct?
Yes.
Out of 9.
Not 5, which would be required, correct? For a diagnosis of the personality disorder.
If that were the correct diagnosis, you would need 5.
All right. During your conversations with Ms. Boone, the defendant in this case, she explained to you that cheating to her means when Mr. Torres would look at pornography, correct?
Correct.
Not a real life woman, right?
No, not that he was engaging in sexual intercourse with actual women.
Part of the records that you did not review were the text messages that were part of the phone extraction of her phone device, correct?
That's right.
You indicated in your conversation with Mr. Owens that some of the traits that are commonly seen in abusers would be control, jealousy, easily angered.
This could be, yes.
What other traits just common for abusers?
Being a person who segregates their victim away from other sources of support, somebody that exhibits coercive control, meaning that they would prevent the person from engaging in activities that would be independent, so restricting their ability to have independent like life, job, money, things like that, that would be supportive of them being left, for instance. Other things would be using emotional expressions like rage to cause a physiological reaction in another person. So those could be additional descriptions.
Specifically, the materials you reviewed. I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
I assure you, you're not.
Paperwork from prior cases involving Mr. Torres and Ms. Boone.
Yes,
Medical records for Mr. Torres.
that's right.
The medical and Aspire records for Ms. Boone that we've discussed.
Yes,
The crime scene photos from the incident in February.
that's right.
Pages 1 through 413 in discovery in this case.
Right.
Mm-mm.
A photograph of a
Strawberries are
suitcase
delicious.
and 2 videos involving the suitcase
That's right.
and additional videos on that phone, correct?
Yes,
Such as baseball bat smashing the TV.
that's part of it. Yes.
And then did you review any other videos where there's conversations between Ms. Boone and Mr. Torres?
Yes.
He's been in
One prior
many.
911 call?
Yes.
Now, today you had indicated that you had reviewed the photographs from some prior incidents of violence, correct?
Yes.
When is it that you did that? Is that recently?
No, there are photos included with the
The prior case packages?
case packages. Thank you. I'm not sure what to call it. So,
That's fine.
all right.
All right, and did you review any body worn camera from those prior case packages?
No, I did not. I didn't have that.
Anything else that you reviewed that I've not covered?
Are you speaking of documents only?
Yes, materials other than your 9 visits with Ms. Boone.
All right. Just checking with the
That's fine.
pointers I
I
prepared
just
for
wanna make
today. I don't know if, I guess that would be part of the discovery. The investigative report is within those 413 pages.
Did you interview anybody else personally besides Ms. Boone?
Yes.
Who else did you personally interview?
Melissa Sexton?
All right. Anybody else?
No.
You didn't interview Brian Boone, correct?
I did not.
You did not interview their child in common, correct?
No.
And you didn't review the phone text messages extracted from her device, correct?
No, I didn't.
Did you review any records from the jail?
No.
And
Judge,
Yeah. Finally,
Yes.
thank you. The fuck. And if she assessed her back in 2020, there wouldn't have been a great deal of jail records either to review. So and she's not diagnosing Brian. She's not diagnosing Lucas. She's diagnosing Sarah. And maybe she didn't look at some text messages. Woohoo. Woohoo. I can't believe he's trying to get her to diagnose something and tell an expert that she's missed. You arrogant mother. Oh, I've got L. I've got L room. L, 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 L. If you wanted to have another diagnosis, you should have got her evaluated yourself with your own expert. Yeah. You had a lot of time to do it. And the psychologist comes across as very credible, very knowledgeable. I think both of the experts chosen to testify have been brilliant, and I'm glad she's standing her ground. And we're still arguing.
So forensic psychology and psychiatry, you all do rely upon the diagnoses of other experts, correct?
You can inform my opinion, yes.
Yeah.
And you have
Yeah.
not reviewed any electronic communications.
You know what? I actually believe her. I'm really starting to believe her. Yes, she's not a nice, like, her personality is not to my liking, but yeah, you can't deny that she wasn't a victim. And I believe he was too. But I do think she's telling the fucking truth. I do. She might be exaggerating, but I think the base element there is fuck. Never thought I'd say that.
In the form of text regarding Ms. Boone's case, correct?
No, I did not.
Or recorded phone calls of any type, correct?
Well, 911.
Other than that.
No, other than that.
Now, let's talk about the February 23rd, 2020.
No, absolutely
I
not.
told you that they didn't really have anything going on to do that particular day, correct?
Well, we're not here
It was a
to
Sunday, correct? Did some chores, and then as a reward,
on her
they could
personality.
rest after doing those chores, correct?
Right.
She indicated to you that she and Mr. Torres did not begin drinking till about 4 p.m., correct?
I'll have to reference.
Page 36 of your deposition, if you care to use that.
Oh my god.
36.
Now he's trying to turn it all around onto her. His interpretation.
All right, I'm with you. Around 4 p.m.
And you reviewed the crime scene photos of this case, correct?
I did.
That included receipts for some purchases that were made at Publix on February 22nd and 23rd, correct?
That's right.
And one of those receipts was a purchase for a 1.5 liter bottle of Woodbridge Chardonnay at 12:17 p.m. on February 23rd, correct?
Yes.
Did you question her about the inconsistency of them having purchased a bottle of wine at 12:17 that afternoon and not start drinking until 4 p.m.?
No.
Oh.
And did she tell you that they had any wine left over from the day before that they consumed that day?
It doesn't matter. When she assessed her, she was not intoxicated. So,
At some point, I'm not sure if it was the day that I was going through this line by line with you in my deposition, but I am aware, yes, that there was an unfinished bottle of wine from some other date.
Mhm.
And then, as the receipt showed, there was 2 additional bottles of 1.5 liters of wine purchased at
Yeah.
12:17
One's
p.m. and about
9 that she
5:30
wasn't
p.m.
supposed.
on the 23rd, correct?
Right.
And were you aware of approximately how much Ms. Boone, the defendant, weighed at the time of this offense, February 23rd, 2020?
Around 100 pounds.
And in the first 413 pages of discovery, I believe, was the autopsy report, correct?
Right.
The
So you're
case.
aware that Mr. Torres was 103 pounds at his death?
Yes.
Do you take into account this alcohol consumption when evaluating what Ms. Boone is telling you about the events of the day?
Yes.
It's not
Did
her
she tell
first
you whether or
date.
not she was intoxicated by the amount of alcohol she consumed that day?
The fuck?
Please silence your cell phone. You may proceed.
So she did not describe herself as intoxicated originally when we discussed this. So
So the answer is no. She did
No.
not describe herself as
But she
intoxicated.
explained why earlier.
Hypothetically, if she had told the jury that she was intoxicated at the time of the offense, would that affect your evaluation of her credibility of the history she provided?
No.
No, because that was also my opinion.
Did she indicate to you in describing the events of February
My dad
23rd,
makes his own.
2020, that there was any point in time she just simply did not remember?
Yes.
What points in time were those?
It's not moonshine, but it's probably close to it.
So she did not remember taking the videos of
Mhm.
the suitcase or the incident in the suitcase until she was at the interrogation room.
Mhm.
Yes. And then they were going through them with her. Then she recalled that.
I'm talking about specifically with you. Did she indicate that there were any portions of the night that, or day or night, that she did not remember?
I can't recall anything specifically right now.
Hypothetically, if she had indicated to the jury that she did not remember the 9 or 10 minutes immediately preceding the first video being taken, would that be inconsistent with what she told you then?
No.
Well, she didn't indicate to you that she forgot any part of the night, right?
Right. She just didn't say that. So
Would
So
it
she wouldn't
affect
have
your
commented on it.
evaluation
She
of
didn't
what
remember
she
it.
told you about the events of February 23rd, 2020, if she hypothetically has testified that she did not remember 10 minutes before the videos?
not really, no, because the event and the course of events that she narrated to me occurred over several hours. So when you interview somebody about circumstances of an offense, it's the usual for someone to not remember every single minute for hours at a time. I can't imagine that anybody's memory could hold that much unless they have like
Good answer.
photographic memory or something.
I'm not asking about hours and hours of, itemization of her day's events. We're talking about the 20 minutes of the offense. Does that affect the weight that you give her history she provided you? Just yes or no?
No.
Good. Take.
Now, what she indicated to you was the day had been going well. It was fun and games, correct?
Mhm.
Yes.
Conflict-free?
Mhm.
To her, she said it was a good day. So
Okay.
that's what she told me.
She said it was a good day.
Yes.
And there comes a point in time where the activities turn toward hide and seek, correct?
Mhm.
Yes.
And she goes up to the shower.
Right.
And when she comes down from the shower, that's when Mr. Torres is in this suitcase, correct?
Getting into it.
And She goes over to the suitcase and zips it.
I'll be back in a second.
And did she describe whether it was 100% zipped to you or just a certain percentage?
She said that it wasn't zipped all the way.
And still then, that was funny to the two of them at first, correct?
That's right.
And then there came a point in time where Mr. Torres was getting mad about being zipped in the suitcase.
She told me that he was getting mad.
And that, in turn, made her mad.
That's right.
What Mr. Torres was saying was, I can't breathe, correct?
That is what's recorded on the video.
Well, I'm asking you about what you reported her saying.
Well, what made her mad was not that he was saying he couldn't breathe. It's what he was saying that was making her mad.
Well, what else was he saying?
At the time, she said that he said something that was making her mad. And so that's the extent of what we talked about at that moment.
So you didn't elaborate what something was that made her mad, correct?
Right. She said he said something that made her mad, and that started making her mad.
You didn't find it important to learn what specifically he said that made her mad, correct?
I don't agree that I didn't find it important.
Okay, then explain. Why wouldn't you ask that question?
Because as a person who is traumatized is describing their experience as a trained clinician, you will allow open-ended discussion of that experience. And so it's not an interrogation. You don't go asking confrontational questions at the time of their first narration.
Well, you had 9 visits with her. Did you follow up on your 9th visit?
I asked her different questions about
Did
Hello?
you ever ask
be
her?
confrontational.
Did you ever ask her specifically in any of your 9 visits with her what it was that he said that made her mad?
No.
It's irrelevant.
She never described him doing anything to make her mad, but it was words, correct?
Right.
He's making me mad.
And once she got mad, she decided that she was going to leave him in there for 2 minutes.
This prosecutor
That's right.
is.
Not 3, not 1, but 2, correct?
That's what she said.
Grasping at straws,
And the
basically.
reason she was doing that was because she wanted him to understand how it feels to be choked and what she had experienced.
That's right.
Intrusive thoughts.
Did you ask her why she didn't let him out of the
Hello?
suitcase after 2 minutes?
Hang on, let me adjust this screen so that we fit. This prosecutor is driving me insane.
Yes, I was just listening to it. He's being awful
You
to
my
her.
cat.
He's being awful to her.
Yes, he's grasping. She's, yeah, he's trying to tell an expert that she's misdiagnosed.
And she's like, no, I wouldn't say that.
He went through the 9 criteria for narcissistic disorder, and she made 3. And he made her go through every one of them, and she came out with 3 of them. Just now he's trying to turn little things against
This
her
just makes him look
evaluation.
like a jackass.
Yeah, because as I said, she assessed her. Like he said, did you go through all the jail records? Because she has been a dick in jail, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
This lady assessed her back in 2020, not just recently. She hasn't had 4 years to drum up this concoction. She hasn't had 4 years to study battered wife syndrome and reenact it. There wasn't 4 years of jail records of her being a dick to evaluate. You know, like if this evaluation was done, you know, since James Owen was put on the case, different
Right.
story. But this was
Right.
done way back at the start. And what annoys me is that he's trying to make her credibility look really bad, yet He's had the last 5 years to have Sarah independently assessed by his own expert
But he-
and has not done so.
Right.
So now he's trying to save face by making her look bad, and he's a dick.
Yeah,
He's a dick.
absolutely. Absolutely. And like I'm gonna say this real quick. I'm not trying to interrupt the court case. I do believe that she was abused. Now that as I've watched more, I do believe that she was abused.
I think they both were. I think they both had a part in it. Yep.
I believe they abused each other.
I believe her. I believe her.
But I believe that Sarah may have been in an abusive relationship before.
Just a
And
different kind, not physical.
right. And that's why the pictures, while she was documenting and journaling and she was keeping a timeline of things, because you tend to do that once you've been in an abusive relationship before. Speaking from experience, you tend to do it. But it was a little much. She was doing a little much. She was going a little far with it. Like she was going to try to set him up, maybe. Like just in case. So it did seem a bit much.
Yeah. Look, as I said to Teresa and Elizabeth and Bri, like, I don't like her personally as a person.
I don't either.
I don't need to judge her on that at
No,
all.
I don't like her as a person either, but I do believe that she was an abused person.
Yeah.
I believe he was an abused person too.
Yep.
But I believe that they were broken people.
Mhm.
They were people addicted to substances. And it was just a sad situation. Very sad. But that doesn't mean she wasn't abused. And to get up there and try to pick apart her abuse, that just makes you a jerk.
I just can't believe that the hype and the, everything that's gone on for the last 5 years in this case, and to what people have said about her. And this was supposedly an open, not, no pun intended, open and shut case, and it's turned on its ass.
Look, I wouldn't have thought anything about it if you wouldn't have said no pun intended.
I actually believe her. I do. I believe her. I think she's probably exaggerated and embellished on a few things. And as I said, I don't like her personality.
But she's got documentation of some horrific abuse, and like those carpet burns. That's horrible.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's awful.
I don't agree with her actions and her behavior, but
how do you think it should come out?
I honestly believe that she will be.
How do you think it should come out?
Time served.
That's what I think too. Exactly. Yeah, she should get 5 years time served. She should go. But I believe that she shouldn't be released out to like her parents. I think she should go into like a transitional housing kind of thing to learn how to live in a normal society.
Yeah.
But I don't even know if they do transitional housing anymore, but that's what I think should happen. Where she gets the help she needs for a year and learns how to live as a normal person and not as a substance abusing person.
Yep. Well, hopefully, if anything positive can come out of the time that she has served already, maybe.
Yeah. But in jail, she didn't learn how to live as a normal person in society.
No, but to be able to not have to rely on alcohol to deal with the situation.
Sure.
Perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah,
and she's gone this long without it.
Oh, definitely. Well, at least we know she's not drinking alcohol right now.
Yeah. And that was the other thing, she wasn't drunk when she was assessed by this woman either. So
it wasn't the next day. It was like way later.
No, yeah. I don't think they can do that if convicted of voluntary manslaughter. Her max sentence.
Not in Florida.
Yeah. No, the Florida statutes are different. It's 4 to 10, I think. 4 is the minimum. Max
in Florida, they can get anywhere from 2 to 10 years.
And even if she got the 10, the maximum, then it would be what, the 80%. So that would take it down to 8 minus the 4 served. That's
And
if she
then
got
different
that.
things, good behavior, all that stuff,
Yeah.
overpopulation, all that plays a
I reckon
role.
she'll work. I reckon she'll. Yeah, I got you. Sorry. I
I'm not sure
reckon.
about involuntary, so I'm not going to make a statement on that, but I do believe
I
it's
don't.
involuntary. I don't think she
Yeah,
meant for him to pass away,
exactly. Yeah.
to unalive. I don't think she meant for
Yeah.
that to happen.
But yeah, involuntary manslaughter is what, 2 to 10.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so.
They can't get past that. There's no way. There is no way. Not now.
Yeah, agreed.
All right,
I
let's
like
see
this
how
woman though.
Look, both of the experts that they've had on are concise, knowledgeable, credible. They were fantastic. Really, really good. And
Yeah, I like her. Just the short time I've been listening to her,
yeah.
she is sticking to her guns. She's not
Yeah.
wavering. I like her.
Yep, I
Her
agree. And the jury's gonna like her as well. And they're just gonna see this guy as being a dick, I hope.
Elizabeth, I haven't done that, but I can see how that can happen. I absolutely can. I absolutely can.
I'm with you there, Elizabeth. This is like reading pages out of my own. There's something about hide and seek and the other one about getting rid of George. But
Here's the thing. She don't give a fudge about that metadata. She don't care. This is about if this woman has PTSD, if she has, diseases. This
the
is
issue too
about
is
metadata for her. She don't care.
it was a shared phone. They've already testified that.
Oh, was it a shared phone?
Yes. He used the same phone she did, so they can't prove who sent the text messages at the end of the day, legally.
That's interesting.
Muted. I saw the timestamp. Yeah,
Would you agree that 20 minutes is 10 times as long as 2 minutes?
I would.
And if Mr. Torres had not been able to get himself out of the suitcase within 20 minutes, she didn't indicate that she let him out, correct?
She did not.
That's a long
She
time.
described to you, Ms. Boone being the she, that she was helpful to the police?
Yes.
Do
You're in Adelaide, aren't you? You're in Adelaide?
Do you agree with that assessment?
What state are you in, Elizabeth? I'm moving there.
I think she's in Adelaide.
In the sense that she was having conversations with them without counsel, I would consider that helpful to the police.
Do you think lying to the police is helpful to the police's investigation?
No.
She's already established why that happened. It's part
I
of
think
the diagnosis.
I would agree with that.
Oh,
And when she described getting Mr. Torres out of the suitcase, she described stretching his little legs.
Yes.
mm,
It was 100
And
pounds.
she stated to you there was no fight that day, correct?
That's right.
Just
Physical.
wanted him to
Doesn't
be
matter.
uncomfortable.
I need to clarify. Physical fight.
Right.
Yes.
Just wanted him to be uncomfortable,
Yes.
correct? And then there's a description of a bat and her using it to nudge, right?
Poke.
Poke. And so do we agree that that means like poking out like this as opposed to swinging it like you're a baseball hitter?
I would agree with you.
And you reviewed the autopsy report, correct?
I believe so.
Did you get an opportunity to review the autopsy photos?
Yes.
Did you question her when she said that she only poked him with the bat?
Oh.
Not in any of your 9 visits?
Did I question her about whether, can you just repeat the question? I want to make sure I'm answering it correctly.
ma'am.
Okay.
and can you use a
Did
microphone?
you ever, in
Yeah,
considering the autopsy report and the
I've got it
autopsy
posted,
photographs
sorry.
that you reviewed,
Yes.
Is better?
when she said that she nudged or poked?
No, I was talking about
the
him.
baseball bat,
Can he use a
ever
microphone?
Oh.
question her about that, given the severity of his injuries?
So to answer correctly, I did question her
What did she say?
about how she used the bat.
Okay.
She reiterated that she poked and she gestured what she meant. So I did question her about that.
And did you have any questions about that history she relayed to you, given the other evidence in this case that you reviewed?
Just in contrast to the interrogation video. So that,
It didn't contrast to the autopsy photographs or
It's not her job to.
Carolina,
while he was inside the suitcase.
yes.
you can't buy
You never told me
THC
that
anything
there
in
was
North
any acting or
Carolina.
Poking with the bat when he's outside the suitcase.
Right.
She indicated that she
Maybe
ended
I will
up
cut
flipping the
this out.
suitcase over face down.
That's right.
Oh, hey, Elizabeth, tell me where you're buying it. Asking for a friend. Not for me. It's for my friend
I've
that
got
sits over
Elizabeth's
here.
Did
email.
she tell you about
I'm over
Mr.
here.
Torres calling his brother earlier that evening?
No.
Did she ever give you?
Did she tell you that she took a crap about a half an hour before the suitcase? The fuck?
This stuff is not relevant to this
history
witness.
about a loud boom occurring inside of her townhouse that evening?
Oh my God.
Bri, you are correct.
You can buy anything anywhere, yep.
From the right people.
Mm?
And
Ganja man.
you never had the opportunity, obviously, to interview Mr. Torres about these things, correct?
Of course not. No.
No other questions.
Are you for real? You hear that? He's ended his cross on, and of course, you didn't ask Mr. Torres about any of that either, did you?
Well, no, he wouldn't come in. I subpoenaed him, but he just wouldn't come in. I have no idea why.
You fuck. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Any redirect examination?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Wilkes County. I'm in Gaston County.
The state attorney talked to you about power and control, that an abusive partner will use power and control over the victim in a intimate partner violence situation.
Yes.
Threatening someone's dogs, is that an example of someone using control?
Yes.
Definitely is.
Taking car keys from
Yeah.
the other party,
Delta
is that
Eight,
an
didn't
you?
example
Delta
of
Eight,
control?
yeah.
If they're withholding, yes.
I think you can buy.
Taking a phone and withholding a phone,
Yes.
a debit card,
Yes.
destroying a home, TVs, putting holes in the wall,
I don't know where any of those counties are.
not helping pay the rent and other bills.
So I would say that that could be withholding, that could go under coercive control of another person.
What
Financial
about
abuse.
violating a court order to have no contact with the person?
Yes.
That's all the questions.
Thank you. Can this witness be released?
As far as the state is concerned.
Mr. Owens? Thank you, doctor.
Thank you.
She's like, I'm up out of here.
I want THC free.
Collect all your stuff, ma'am. No worries.
I just want the CBD
Oh.
stuff.
No
Hey,
apologies
somebody's at my
necessary.
house. I'll be right back.
Before you rest in the presence of our jury.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
The resting.